me talk first about dream. The first thing we need to realize, and that's very obvious, but some people forget that, is that companies like universities, we are a group of people. I mean, our people equals our company. It's not the opposite, right? So there's no such a thing as a company. What you have is our people. If our people are excited, learning, progressing, with adrenaline, going faster, so is the company. If people are misinformed, going different directions, not knowing exactly what's happening, doing different things in a non-coordinated fashion, the company stalls. So, you know, people equals company, not the opposite. And because of that, to talk about dream is something that should be very natural to people, because we all dream every night. Sometimes good dreams, sometimes bad dreams, but we know what dreams are. So we don't talk about mission, vision, any of those things. We talk about a company dream. Because we believe that a company dream is something that you don't need to explain a mission and vision and this and that. You need to explain what the differences are and all that. A dream, everybody knows what it is. It's something that's stretched, aspirational, that you have to work hard to get there, and you're going to derive a lot of pleasure once you get there. You're going to be a happy person once you get there and accomplish. And then you dream big again. And the thing we learn time and again is that dreaming big or small takes the same amount of energy. So we always said to ourselves and to our people, why don't we dream big? Because it takes the same amount of energy. Nobody's going to knock on our door and say, hey, you're dreaming small, why don't you dream bigger? It has to come from within, things we believe we can accomplish. So let's put out a big dream that has a couple of functions or roles within the company. It has to be something that touches everybody, that gets people excited for a common goal, gets people committed to that thing, and that gets people passionate about getting there. Because it's hard. Again, it's a dream, it's a stretch, right? And the beautiful thing about the dream is that it opens a gap. Because if you're, as a company, and again, we only live once, so it's very sad to work for a company that's just trying to survive and make ends meet, as opposed to being best in class. And best in class is being redefined every day by competition, by consumers and their expectations. So what used to be very good 10 years ago, today doesn't cut it anymore. So that is a concept that's always evolving. And when we say we're trying to build the best beer company by bringing people together for a better world, the best beer company will never get there. We're always trying to get there. But once you get closer to it, the target moves because it's being redefined. But the good thing about having a big dream is that you open a big gap. You say, we're here today. Our dream is to come here. That's a gap. And now we have to close the gap. And the only reason managers in the company, in the broader sense of the world, exist, we managers, is to really open gaps and close gaps. That's the way you do things. I'm sure when you guys came to Darden, you also thought you had a gap. You said, you know what, I'd like, in terms of my education, exposure to business issues, to be here. I'm here. I want to close this gap. I'll wait to close it. I think Darden will do it for me, together with my hard work. So the good thing about having a big dream is that you get people to really think in a different way. Then you connect targets to it and compensation to it. So it's a whole system that works together. And once you set the bar high, people have to think in a different way. I always say, if you go to an athlete who's a high jumper, a good guy in terms of high jump, and you put the threshold here, nobody's going to jump here. Because human beings are rational. We're going to use energy. We're going to conserve energy. So if it's being asked to jump here, I'm going to jump enough to clear the hurdle. And then if you raise the bar and you can still clear the hurdle, you say, well, I didn't know it was that good. And then you continue to do that until you find what your limit is. But we think it's very sad for you to go through life, since you only live once, without knowing what your full potential can be. And that's why we like to stretch people. Because it's only when you take people out of their comfort zone that we all evolve, right? I mean, I'm sure when you came to Darden, that first finance class, strategy class, marketing class, took you out of your comfort zone, right? Having to participate in class, have to have an opinion, have to expose yourselves. But isn't that how you grow? When you have to get out of your comfort zone? So in our company, we believe that the way to develop people is doing exactly that. To take people all the time from their comfort zone and be always stretching people. Because then it's the high jump. People start saying, you know, the first time you put the bar high, and the guy says, I'm not sure I can do that. And he jumps, he or she. And then the next time, The guy says, you know what, I like this. Give me a bigger bone. I want to chew a bigger bone because I like this thing of stretch targets and accomplishing things that I thought I would not be able to do it because I'm getting to know more about myself. So we think it's very sad, again, to go through life without giving people to experience their full potential and exposing them to different situations so they learn more about what they can accomplish and what they like and what they're good at. And we can only do that by changing people, having a career that's zigzag between different areas of the company, and always taking them out of the comfort zone, all of us. Okay? So that's the dream. Then for you to dream big, the second leg of the stool is people. You need to have great people to be able to deliver on those dreams. And people, since the very beginning, we've always convinced that the only sustainable competitive advantage we could have in the marketplace was the talent and the kind of people we would attract and retain and develop in the company. Everything else could be copied. Think about this. If you work in a consulting environment or a banking environment, you're totally convinced of that, right? The only thing is people. And maybe frameworks they use and databases that you have, but I mean, it's people. Because a framework without good people also doesn't mean anything, right? But if you come to a consumer goods company that has breweries, warehouses, trucks, and this and that, asset-intensive business, you tend to think that the most important things are brands and this and the assets. And you tend to think that people are like enablers, but not the top priority in your list. Of course, brands are very important. Of course, that's what consumers see. But behind a great brand, you have great teams that build great brands. Behind a great brewery that's efficient and produces high-quality beer, you have great people. So at the end, it's all about people. And that's the thing that's hard to copy from a competitive standpoint. Because products you can copy the next day. You launch a new package. It can take a month, 6 months, a year. Somebody will come with the same package. Easy. But this whole thing, this invisible thing about having a big dream, great people, and a culture that I'll talk next, that's something that's soft, nobody sees, nobody pays attention, and it's a true competitive advantage. Because at the end of the day is what everything else, that's where everything else starts. So again, a great brand starts with great people that understand consumers, have the insights, execute according to the insights with consistency, and therefore you have a strong brand, and so on and so forth. And what we learn about people is that great people attract more of the same. But mediocre people also attract more of the same. Great people love to work with each other, talented people, because they challenge each other, they respect each other, they learn from each other. They give each other challenges, constructive criticism. That's great people. They're not afraid. They want constructive criticism so they can grow. Mediocre people are the kind of people that are always tapping everybody on the back and saying, great job, amazing. Give to each other easy targets. So on January 1st, you know 120% how you're going to get to your target, and you feel good about yourself. But you're not creating a great company. You're creating an average company. So great people attract more of the same, and mediocre people also attract more of the same. They like to work together, both groups. And because the company is what its people are, if you have a whole bunch of mediocre people in the company, guess what? Your company is going to be an average company. And if you have a whole bunch of talented people in your company, you have a chance of building a great company, right? So we have a lot of things that we do in terms of people, starting from what we're doing here today, in which I'm trying to sell you how we operate and trying to entice some of you to maybe come talk to us. Because again, that's we don't hire from the marketplace. We only hire from colleges, universities, MBAs, trainees, because we believe in promoting from within. We don't believe in getting somebody with 20 years market experience coming to the company. So this whole thing about people is something that we invest a lot. The third leg of our Dream People culture is the culture piece. And this culture is a culture of ownership. There are 7 aspects to it, but the most important one is the ownership culture. We've seen time and again that when people treat the company like your own company, decisions are better and people are committed because it's my company. Think about your car. I've heard that some people not in our company, but in some of our competitors, that's the way they think. That if they rent a car, they treat the car in a different way than they treat their car. You know? This competitors of ours, huh? Always. So if they rent a car, they'll try things that they would never have the courage to try in their own car. So they'll try to go over speed bumps at 40 miles an hour just to see if the four wheels will get off the ground, right? I see some people nod and say, yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've done that, been there, seen it. And, or the car is still going forward and you want to see what happens if you put reverse, just to see if there is a computer that will, avoid the mistake of the whole transmission will fall to the ground, But you do that, these competitors of ours, they do that in rental cars because they're not going to live with the consequences of their experiments. If whatever they do and the car has a problem, the next customer will live with the experience. You don't do that in your own car. In your own car, of course, you take risks. Driving is a risk. But you do it knowing that this car is going to be yours for the next year, 5 years, 10 years. And therefore, you drive it in a different way. Some people even say that, there is a saying that people say, well, don't be gentle. It's a rental, Or some people say, hey, Brito, have you ever heard of somebody who took a rental car to a car wash? I mean, it doesn't exist, right? I mean, you rent a car in the winter sometimes, and the car is all gray and black and full of stuff. You just return the car the way it is. If it's your car, every 3 days you go through one of those car washes, right? So, I mean, I'm just saying all that because there's a big difference in people that go to work for a company in the sense of, I need a job, so this is a job, or people that go passionately and join a company and say, this is my company. And we try to create and foster this environment that people feel this is my company because then they stay longer, they make better decisions, and they live with the consequences of their decisions. And they treat the company and the company money and everything as their own money. So, we always say that because the company is ours, our travel policies and the way we use company's money is the way we use our own money, right? So you see some companies sometimes that you go and people, maybe some of you have this experience that when it's company money, it's all first class traveling, 5-star hotels, right? It's all 5-course meal because, a company's rich, so let's just spend it, If it's your money, you shop for the best fare, you stay in a hotel that's a good value for the money, you go for restaurants that, again, good value for the money. But if it's company money, a lot of companies use it in a different way, right? So that's one aspect. This whole aspect, the whole ownership, it's a very important one. The other one is focus. Focus on results. The two words are very important. I mean, focus is that idea that you can only make things work if you focus on 2, 3, 5 things max. I don't know your experience on that, but our experience is that if you try to do 10 or 20, at the end it gets so shallow that at the end you don't get to the end of anything. If you do 2 or 3, you have a more likelihood of getting all the way to the end and getting the results at the end. And focus on results. The means are very important as long as they produce results. Mean by means doesn't mean much, right? Another thing about our culture is the whole idea of simplicity. Simplicity. What's simple has more likelihood of success, of being understood by people, of being remembered by people, much easier to explain and measure. Everything is very complex. So whenever we see PowerPoint presentations, again, we're not perfect. Sometimes we fall into those traps. But whenever we see PowerPoint presentations that are very elaborate, full of colors and animations and stuff, we tend to think that the content maybe is not the greatest. And that's why you have to do so much, things, because the good presentations are the ones that sometimes you do in a flip chart, because they're so simple that the ideas, it flows naturally, right? Another thing that's very important is if you think about a company as something that's a box where you have top line coming in, sales, and part of that sales is going to be used to run the company today and invest for the future, and what's left, it's what the bottom line is, what the profit is. The whole idea that you have to maximize what comes in and try to optimize what's being spent in the box is very key. And we always say the only thing you can control 100% is the cost at which you run the business and the investments you're doing for the future. That's the only thing within your control 100%. Top line depends on competitive actions, depends on customers, on weather, on consumers, on taxes, on regulatory frameworks, depends on so many things. You can influence for sure. but it's not 100% within your control. So we tend to be a frugal company. We tend to be a frugal company. Why? Because it's always better to be fit than non-fit. Because when tough times come, the fittest companies are the ones that will survive and be able to continue to invest for the future and not have to do some dramatic cuts of all sorts of things to survive. So we always told our guys, let's try to be as efficient as possible because we are a meritocracy here, and I'll explain that at the end of the year, we can split the profits with the partners as opposed to spend on car companies and five-star hotels and things we wouldn't do with your own money. The definition, another thing between owners and professionals. We love owners, we hate professionals and executives. Why? Because owners join companies to build companies, great companies, and to deliver on dreams. That's an owner. Executives join companies to build their resumes. Isn't that interesting? See the difference? So the guy comes to a company and says, I'll be here for 2-3 years because it's good to have a CPG company in my resume. Then I'll go to this consulting company because da-da-da. Then I go to a private equity for another 3 years. And you're building a resume. We don't like people like that. That's why we hire from college. Because then we got people that are fresh, they're willing to understand what a culture means. And we talk about our culture all the time. Whenever I go to trips and stuff that I do, is it time? Yeah. Whenever I travel and I do, I got our people in India, in China, anywhere, Brazil, and we do Q&A, I always start doing what I'm doing here, but 10-minute version with examples of the region so people can connect the values, the principles to what they live on a daily basis. And then we open for Q&A. Because it's one thing that the moment you take for granted, and you say, well, because when you think about it, what we're saying here, it's what any athlete would do. Phelps did the same. He had a big dream, and he wanted 8 gold medals. I think most of us would be happy just to go to the Olympics, right? He wanted 8 gold medals, a big dream. He surrounded himself with the best people he could find, coaches, physiotherapists, nutritionists, best people, people. And he owned the process. He was not being forced to do that. He owned that thing. He trained for 5 years, 8 hours a day, Christmas Day, birthday, every day, So because he had that motivation, that big dream. Why 8? Well, because he wanted. And he thought it was worth it.